and highly skilled professionals while boosting research collaboration and innovation. Another agreement on the security of information is also on the agenda. In a post on X, S Jaishankar said he discussed the current state of the world with volatility and instability as the new normal. Jaishankar also said he looked forward to the visit of European Council President Antonio Costa and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, who will be the chief guests at India's Republic Day parade on Monday. Meanwhile, ahead of the summit, EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas confirmed that a new security and defence partnership will be signed. And leading a strong Indian delegation at the World Economic Forum's annual meeting, Union Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw on Thursday said India has sent a clear message to the world. It is open to partnerships across the economic spectrum and remains strong amid rising global debt concerns. Now, speaking to reporters, Vaishnaw said India's presence at the forum reflects how Prime Minister Narendra Modi has transformed and opened up the economy over the past 11 years. The minister said India is open to collaboration across sectors, including semiconductors, artificial intelligence, manufacturing and clean energy. He also highlighted the participation of 10 Indian states at the forum, saying they have effectively showcased their potential under the government's model of cooperative and competitive federalism. On global debt worries, Vaishnaw said India remains among the few major economies with relatively low debt levels. He noted that even at an aggregate level, India's debt is far lower than that of several developed economies. Listen in.
भारत का मैसेज माननीय प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने जिस तरह से पिछले 11 वर्षों में भारत की इकोनॉमी को ट्रांसफॉर्म किया है, किस तरीके से एक नई ओपननेस है, तो इस बार का मैसेज है पार्टनर विद इंडिया, ओपन टू आइडियाज, ओपन टू पार्टनरशिप्स। वो मैसेज बहुत क्लियरली हर डिस्कशन में आ रहा है, चाहे सेमीकंडक्टर इंडस्ट्री हो, चाहे एआई हो, चाहे मैन्युफैक्चरिंग से रिलेटेड हो, चाहे ग्रीन एनर्जी से हो, हर जगह बहुत क्लियरली लोग भारत के साथ पार्टनरशिप करना चाहते हैं।
Meanwhile, the state of Maharashtra has signed MOUs worth 30 lakh crore rupees at the World Economic Forum in Davos, with the potential to generate up to 40 lakh jobs across industries, services, agriculture and technology. Addressing a virtual press conference from Davos, Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis said discussions are also underway for projects worth another 7 to 10 lakh crore rupees, with these MOUs expected to materialize over the next 2 months. He said 83% of the agreements are foreign direct investments coming from 18 countries, including the US, UK, Japan, Singapore and several European nations. The Chief Minister also said Maharashtra has a strong track record with a realization rate of nearly 75% for MOUs signed last year, and the latest investments are expected to materialize over a 3 to 7 year period. Major global and Indian companies such as Tata Group, Adani, Reliance, Brookfield, ArcelorMittal, Volkswagen, Skoda Auto and Coca-Cola have signed agreements spanning sectors like AI, quantum computing, data centers, green steel, logistics and digital infrastructure. And also at Davos, Civil Aviation Minister K. Ramohan Naidu on Thursday held a series of high-level meetings on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum in Davos, focusing on sustainability, safety and future mobility in aviation. The minister met European Union Transport Commissioner, where discussions centered on strengthening EU-India cooperation in the transport ecosystem. Naidu said the talks included closer coordination between European aviation regulator EASA and India's DGCA to further enhance aviation safety standards. Naidu also met Embraer CEO Francisco Gomes Neto to discuss ways to expand the Brazilian aerospace major's presence in India through strategic partnerships with Indian companies, as the country continues to emerge as one of the world's fastest growing civil aviation markets. In another key interaction, the minister held talks with World Meteorological Organization Secretary General Celeste Saulo, stressing the role of advanced weather intelligence and climate data in improving aviation safety and sustainable operations amid rising air traffic. The 5-day World Economic Forum annual meeting has drawn over 3,000 global leaders to Davos. Union Minister Prahlad Joshi urged global investors to tap into India's fast-growing renewable energy sector on Thursday, projecting the country as a stable and future-ready destination for clean energy investments. Now, speaking again at the World Economic Forum 2026 in Davos, the Minister for New and Renewable Energy said India has already built 267 gigawatts of non-fossil fuel capacity as of December 2025 and remains firmly on track to meet its 2030 clean energy targets. Across multiple sessions and investor meetings, Joshi engaged with global energy companies to explore investments in areas such as green hydrogen-linked infrastructure, renewable energy combined with battery storage and grid modernization. He also encouraged the use of patient capital and blended finance models to support large-scale deployment. Union Minister of State for External Affairs Kirti Vardhan Singh said India is unlikely to be significantly impacted even if the United States imposes higher tariffs, asserting that the strength of the Indian economy is now widely recognized globally, including by US President Donald Trump. Now, speaking to reporters, Singh said, while Trump had earlier spoken about imposing steep tariffs on India, there is now an understanding that such measures would not cause major damage to the country due to its economic resilience. He said India today enjoys strong trade engagement with regions including Africa, the European Union and several other global markets. The minister stressed that India's vast population makes it a major consumption and production hub, and its economy does not depend on just a handful of countries. He added that India is strong both economically and militarily, and its growing global influence is being increasingly acknowledged. Singh also noted that international trade agreements require multiple rounds of negotiations and cannot be finalized overnight. Referring to evolving global dynamics, he said the world has moved from a bipolar structure to a multipolar order. Listen in.
ये मैसेज अगर हम बहुत छोटे में कहना चाहें तो आप इसको ये मैसेज मानिए कि भारत देश बहुत मजबूत है। हम लोगों की व्यवस्था मजबूत है, हम लोगों की अर्थव्यवस्था मजबूत है, हम लोगों का सैनिक बल मजबूत है। यही आप मैसेज मानिए अगर हम बहुत छोटे में कहना चाहें कि आज भारत की ताकत को पूरा देश, पूरा विदेश, पूरा विश्व मानता है और हम लोगों की अर्थव्यवस्था मजबूत हो चुकी है। हम लोग कम या और अन्य देश अगर जिस तरह से ये जो टैरिफ लगाने की बात कर रहे हैं, ये उन लोगों की भी समझ में आ गया कि हम लोगों की अर्थव्यवस्था मजबूत हो गई है और उनके टैरिफ लगाने से बहुत ज़्यादा कुछ नुकसान नहीं कर पाएंगे। बहुत सारे ऐसे देश हैं दुनिया में, हमारा पूरा अफ्रीका महाद्वीप है, हमारे पूरी दक्षिण देश हैं, हमारा यूरोप यूनियन है, वो सब भारत के साथ प्रेफर्ड ट्रेड एग्रीमेंट यानी कि आसानी तौर से हम लोग आयात निर्यात कर सकें, उस तरह की तमाम बातें हो रही हैं, वो तैयार।
And staying with trade and India's position, well, Consumer Affairs Secretary Nidhi Khare on Thursday met Myanmar's Deputy Commerce Minister U Min Min in Yangon, where the two sides discussed the steady growth in bilateral trade relations between India and Myanmar. According to an official statement, Khare said Myanmar has emerged as a reliable supplier of key pulses such as urad and tur to India. The discussions took place on the sidelines of the South Asia Agri Forum in Yangon. Agricultural cooperation, particularly in pulses, remain a cornerstone of India-Myanmar trade ties under a 5-year memorandum of understanding signed in 2021. The agreement commits India to importing at least 2.5 lakh tons of urad and 1 lakh tons of tur dal annually, irrespective of changes in India's import policies. Khare said the arrangement has created a win-win situation, ensuring the availability and affordability of pulses for Indian consumers while providing Myanmar's farmers with assured access to the Indian market. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman on Thursday met a delegation of farmers led by BJP MP D. Purunandeswari ahead of Union Budget 2026-27. Now, according to the Finance Ministry, the delegation flagged concerns over a proposed sharp increase in taxation on flue-cured Virginia tobacco, warning that it could cause distress to lakhs of farming families dependent on the tobacco crop. Now, it's also told that the finance minister that higher taxes could disrupt the regulated tobacco marketing system and hurt farmers in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, where the crop is ready and auctions are set to begin next month. The delegation also cautioned that a steep tax hike could push consumers towards illicit trade, impacting legal sales and resulting in revenue losses for the exchequer. Farmers said higher taxes could depress domestic demand, affect auctions and lead to price declines and unsold inventories at a crucial time for the upcoming marketing season. And shifting focus to commodities, especially metals now, gold and silver prices retreated from record highs in the national capital yesterday as investors booked profits amid easing global tensions and a decline in safe haven demand. Gold of 99.9% purity fell by 2,500 rupees to 1,57,200 rupees per 10 grams after hitting an all-time high in the previous session. Silver snapped its 9-day rally, plunging sharply by 14,300 rupees to 3,20,000 rupees per kg. Analysts said the correction came after US President Donald Trump softened his stance on trade and ruled out a forceful takeover of Greenland, boosting risk appetite and prompting investors to unwind positions in safe haven assets. In global markets, gold prices also slipped while silver remained volatile. Experts said bullion prices may stay choppy in the near term, with traders closely tracking global cues, upcoming US inflation data and key central bank decisions. And moving on now, Serum Institute of India CEO Adar Poonawalla on Thursday said he plans to put in a strong and competitive bid for Royal Challengers Bengaluru, the IPL franchisee owned by United Spirits. In a post on X, Poonawalla said he would be submitting a bid over the next few months for RCB, which won its maiden Indian Premier League title in 2025. The development comes after United Spirits in November announced a strategic review of its investment in Royal Challengers Sports Private Limited, the wholly owned subsidiary that owns the RCB franchise. Time for a very short break. A lot more coming up on the other side of the break. Keep watching News 9. This is Morning Brief at 9.
A tall cappuccino with caramel syrup and cardamom.
Sure.
A tall cappuccino with caramel syrup and cardamom.
Sure.
Tall alfacino with camel soup and Cardi G ki mom. अदरक वाली चाय पिलाओ ना, कड़क।
सर, मलाई मार के देती हूँ।
लाइफ हो या इन्वेस्टिंग, भीड़ के पीछे मत भागो। म्यूचुअल फंड अपनाओ और खुद के हिसाब से इन्वेस्ट करो।
म्यूचुअल फंड निवेश बाजार जोखिमों के अधीन है। योजना से संबंधित सभी दस्तावेजों को ध्यान से पढ़ें।
With Skoda Supercare and growing network across 180 plus cities, you never drive alone. Skoda.
तुम डेस्टिनेशन वेडिंग के लिए बजट रोते थे, पर पिक्स कितनी अच्छी आई हैं।
बहुत क्यूट लग रही हो।
ऑब्वियो, अपने दम पे शादी करने का ग्लो।
इनकी जिद ने किया डेस्टिनेशन वेडिंग का सपना सच, अपने दम पर। टाटा कैपिटल पर्सनल लोन्स के साथ।
Welcome back. You're watching News 9. This is Morning Brief at 9. On to global stories we're tracking for you this Friday morning. Well, let's begin with US President Donald Trump, who said he plans to travel to China in April this year and will later host Chinese President Xi Jinping in the United States, signaling a renewed push to stabilize ties between the world's two largest economies that Trump himself describes as G2. Now, speaking to reporters aboard Air Force One while returning from the World Economic Forum in Davos, Trump pointed to China's renewed purchases of large quantities of US soybean, calling it a positive development for American farmers. Here's US President Donald Trump.
I'm going to make a trip. I'm going in April. He'll come toward the end of the year. And I look forward to seeing President Xi. I've always had, his wife is fantastic. He's an amazing guy. And I've always had a great relationship. President Xi of China. Always had a great relationship with him. It was a very strained relationship during COVID. But now it's an excellent relationship. Look, you see that. Look at all the farm product they're buying. The soybeans, they're buying a lot of soybeans. That makes our farmers happy. And that makes me happy. Thank you very much, everybody.
And taking a sharp U-turn on his earlier aggressive Arctic policy, US President Donald Trump also said that Washington will work with NATO on the security of Greenland, signaling a coordinated approach with the military alliance. Now, Trump said the plan he has in mind for the strategically located territory would be well received, adding that more details would be announced in coming weeks. Listen in.
Does that actually give you control of land in Greenland? Does it give U.S. control ownership of land?
Whatever we want to do. We're all going to work together, and actually NATO is going to be involved with us. We're going to be doing in conjunction, parts of it in conjunction with NATO, which is really the way it should be.
To be clear, will the U.S. own that?
Have any expense, because we're not going to have expense. Other than building the Golden Dome, we're going to build the Golden Dome. And we'll have participation in that also. The cost of the Golden Dome, we'll have participation in that also, meaning with the expense of it. And it'll be like no other. I mean, our technology is incredible.
Staying with relations between US and EU, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen on Friday said Europe had been successful in its firm but non-escalatory approach towards the United States after US President Donald Trump backed away from threats to acquire Greenland. Von der Leyen said the European Commission will soon propose a substantive investment package for Greenland, the semi-autonomous territory of Denmark, signaling stronger EU engagement in the Arctic region.
Let me compliment that. It was very clear in the discussion that we were successful in withstanding by being firm but non-escalatory and, most importantly, very united. But there was also a discussion on the clarity with which we know that we have to work more and more for an independent Europe.
From US-EU, let's move to US-Canada. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney on Thursday pushed back against US President Donald Trump's claim that Canada lives because of the United States, saying the country thrives on its own values of inclusion, openness and shared prosperity. Now, speaking a day after Trump's remarks at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Carney said Canada's strength flows from its people and institutions, not from dependence on any single partner.
Canada and the United States have built a remarkable partnership in the economy, in security, and in rich cultural exchange. But Canada doesn't live because of the United States. Canada thrives because we are Canadian. In a time of rising populism and ethnic nationalism, Canada can show how diversity is a strength, not a weakness. In a time of democratic decline, we can show how rights can be protected and equal freedoms endure. And in a time of rising walls and thickening borders, we can demonstrate how a country can be both open and secure, welcoming and strong, principled and powerful.
And Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky on Thursday delivered a sharp critique of Europe at Davos summit, calling it a fragmented kaleidoscope of small and middle powers and warning of a bleak future unless it finds the courage to act decisively against both US and Russian pressure. Now, nearly 4 years after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Zelensky again sought to rally often hesitant European allies, urging them to show greater unity and strategic resolve. Take a look.
The top issue at the annual World Economic Forum in Davos this year appeared to be brewing tensions between Washington and Europe over the fate of Greenland. As fears simmer over that new crisis, the president of Ukraine found himself trying to keep focus on an older one. Volodymyr Zelensky quipped that his speeches to the assembled world leaders began to feel a bit like the film Groundhog Day.
A year has passed
and nothing has changed.
And he lamented that global attention now seemed elsewhere.
Maduro is on trial in New York. Sorry, but Putin is not on trial.
Nearly 4 years after Russian forces invaded Ukraine, the country's president once again tried to rally often reluctant European allies. He repeated calls for Europe to create its own united armed forces and to use frozen Russian financial assets to support Ukraine. Zelensky also met with U.S. President Donald Trump at the Swiss resort town. Both sides described the meeting as productive. Trump has made repeated efforts to find a peace deal between Kiev and Moscow, but it remains out of reach.
And I think they're getting close. A lot of people are being killed. We got to get it done. If we don't get that done, it would be...
An American team is set to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow on Friday. Zelensky urged European leaders to be more robust in defending democratic values in their region as U.S. attention turns away.
And shifting focus to Iran now, U.S. President Donald Trump on Thursday said there was a big force moving toward Iran, adding that Washington was watching the country very closely. U.S. officials said an aircraft carrier strike group and other military assets are expected to arrive in the Middle East in coming days as tensions between Washington and Tehran continue to escalate. Listen in to Donald Trump again.
You know, we have a lot of ships going that direction, just in case. We have a big flotilla going in that direction, and we'll see what happens. A big force. We have a big force going toward Iran. I'd rather not see anything happen, but we're watching them very closely. I saw 837 hangings on Thursday. They would have been dead. Every one of them would have been hung. This is like from 1,000 years ago. This is an ancient culture. Very smart people, by the way. It's an ancient culture. 837, mostly young men, were going to be hung on Thursday. And I said, if you hang those people, you're going to be hit harder than you've ever been hit. It'll make what we did to your Iran nuclear look like peanuts. And an hour before this horrible thing was going to take place, they canceled it. And they actually said they canceled it. They didn't postpone it. They canceled it. So that was a good sign. But we have an armada. We have a massive fleet heading in that direction. And maybe we won't have to use it. We'll see.
The U.S. President has also weighed in on questions of succession, security and the future of the White House in a televised interview. When asked about Republican leaders who could carry forward his legacy, Trump praised several senior members of his administration, including Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio and Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, highlighting their performance and leadership roles.
Well, J.D.'s been great. Marco's been great. Scott's been great. Everybody's been great. Look at Tom Homan and Christie, the job they've done with security. Don't forget, we had people pouring in the millions that were just walking right into our country, destroying our country. We stopped it. We have I could name 20 people that are phenomenal.
Well, the U.S. economy grew slightly faster than earlier estimates in the third quarter, according to revised government data released on Thursday, with stronger exports and business investment lifting growth. However, underlying demand from households and businesses was revised down, reinforcing concerns of a K-shaped recovery. The Federal Reserve is widely expected to hold interest rates steady at its policy meeting next week.
The U.S. economy performed slightly better in the third quarter than first estimated. That's according to data from the Commerce Department on Thursday, which showed gross domestic product increased at an annual rate of 4.4%, the fastest pace in 2 years. Economists polled by Reuters had forecast GDP would be unrevised from an initial estimate of 4.3%. The slight upward revision to third quarter growth reflected upgrades to exports and business investment. Consumer spending, which accounts for more than 2/3 of U.S. GDP, grew at a solid rate of 3.5% in the third quarter. But underlying demand from American consumers and businesses, measured by final sales to private purchasers, was revised down slightly. Economic activity has assumed a so-called K-shaped pattern, with higher-income households and big corporations doing the heavy lifting. Economists have blamed this phenomenon on President Donald Trump's policies, including aggressive import tariffs, which have raised prices. The latest inflation data, also released on Thursday, showed prices continue to rise gradually. The Personal Consumption Expenditures Price Index increased 0.2% in November, matching October's pace. That put the annual inflation rate through November at 2.8%. It's been hovering at or near that rate for several months, still above the Federal Reserve's target rate of 2%. The Fed is expected to leave interest rates unchanged at its policy meeting next week.
And from U.S. economy to U.S. markets, Wall Street's main indices ended higher for a second straight session on Thursday as investors took comfort from easing trade tensions and fresh signs of U.S. economic resilience. Markets reacted positively after President Donald Trump rolled back tariff threats against European allies, helping lift sentiment across equities.
Wall Street's main indexes finished higher on Thursday, with the Dow gaining more than 0.6%, the S&P 500 adding more than 0.5%, and the Nasdaq climbing 0.9%. Investors piled into stocks for a second straight day after U.S. President Donald Trump rescinded his tariff threats on European allies. Solid economic data, including a stronger-than-expected third-quarter GDP rate of 4.4%, highlighted American economic resilience. Both buoyed investor sentiment after the threat of new tariffs kicked off the holiday-shortened week with a steep sell-off, explained Mike Muscio, president of FBB Capital Partners.
All else being equal, the markets, like not going to war with allies. The markets like deals rather than animosity. And a backdrop of decent economic data, which includes the GDP growth figure, which also includes, I think, importantly, inflation data that was not, overly hot. This is all, again, teeing up stuff for next week that markets, seem satisfied with and comfortable with. And importantly, again, is for all the volatility we've had over 3 days, we're basically even money from where we were last Friday.
Stocks on the move Thursday included Intel, which plunged more than 11% in extended trading after the company forecast quarterly revenue and profit below market estimates and said it struggled to satisfy demand for its server chips used in AI data centers. Shares of medical device maker Abbott slid 10%, its largest one-day percentage drop since 2002, after the company forecast current quarter profit below Wall Street expectations. And McCormick, the maker of Cholula hot sauce and cooking spices, dropped about 8% after forecasting weak annual profit in 2026 on higher costs related to tariffs and other inputs.
And finally, moving to the crypto space, Michael Saylor's Bitcoin-focused firm Strategy says it has bought more than $2 billion worth of Bitcoin in recent days. Meanwhile, Intercontinental Exchange has unveiled a new platform for trading and settling tokenized securities, highlighting growing institutional interest in digital assets. Here's a look at the latest crypto headlines.
From a Bitcoin buy-up to the New York Stock Exchange's new digital platform, this is Crypto Weekly. Billionaire Michael Saylor's Bitcoin-focused firm Strategy says it bought about $2.13 billion worth of Bitcoin in recent days. It stepped up purchases even as its stock has been pressured by crypto volatility. The company acquired roughly 22,305 Bitcoin between January the 12th and 19th. India's central bank has reportedly proposed that BRICS countries link their official digital currencies to make cross-border trade and tourism payments easier. Two sources told Reuters it could reduce reliance on the US dollar as geopolitical tensions rise. They added the Reserve Bank of India has recommended to the government that the proposal be included in the agenda for the 2026 BRICS summit, which the country will host later this year. Transactions on a new China-led digital currency platform have surged to over $55 billion, a new report shows. It's the latest sign that efforts to build alternatives to dollar-dependent global payment systems are gaining traction. The reports showed the prototype M-Bridge platform is being tested by central banks in China, Hong Kong, Thailand, the UAE and Saudi Arabia. And it had processed more than 4,000 cross-border transactions. Intercontinental Exchange said it's developed a platform for trading and on-chain settlement of tokenized securities. The move by the New York Stock Exchange parent is to capitalize on global demand for US equities. The exchange said its new digital platform, for which it will seek regulatory approvals, will enable 24/7 operations, as well as instant settlement orders sized in dollar amounts and stablecoin-based funding.
With that, we will slip into another very short break. But coming up on the other side, all that you should expect or potentially could expect from Budget 2026. That and more. You're watching Morning Brief at 9.
इतनी दूर कैसे करेगी? ऑटो लेगी क्या? नहीं अम्मा। तो सरप्राइज। जिद्दी लड़की।
इसकी जिद ने दी इसे एक नई उड़ान, टाटा कैपिटल 2 व्हीलर लोन्स के साथ।
घर है वही जहाँ सब संग हो, रिश्तों को रंग दो, दुनिया को रंग दो।
Birla Opus Paints.
Bangladesh is on edge. Protesters also targeted symbols of Bangladesh's political history.
Mr. Yunus is being the new Jinnah of Bangladesh.
What defines this mob? Who are these people? Where do they come from? Pratham Alo, the newspaper, has also called it a terror attack.
Yunus is the Osama bin Laden of today's world.
The state has no strength, or those who are on the street are the state themselves. There's nothing called spontaneous mob. There's a theory called you keep the pot boiling.
Budget for Bulletproof Bharat. That's the News9 programming. Just days to go for Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman to unveil Budget 2026. What should you expect and what could the Finance Minister deliver? All eyes are set on Sunday, the 1st of February. Well, that's right. With the Union Budget for FY 2026-27 set to be presented by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman on the 1st of Feb, all eyes are on the big policy decisions ahead of News9 is launching a special Budget 2026 poll, and your voice matters. Now scan the QR code on the screen right now. Take part and vote on the key question that will shape India's economic future. Now, winners with the most correct predictions will win Amazon vouchers and have the opportunity to be featured on News9. That's right. So today, the big question we are asking is, and make your prediction, take a wild guess and go ahead, scan the QR code and vote. Do you think Budget 2026 will introduce tighter rules or taxes to further curb crypto investing? Scan the QR code and vote yes or no. That's the question. Will Budget 2026 further curb cryptocurrency investing? And as India counts down to Union Budget 2026 on the 1st of Feb, the biggest question remains whether taxpayers will get another reason to cheer. Remember, after last year's sweeping reset of the income tax system, expectations are high that Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman could once again put the salaried and middle class right at the center of the budget speech. Now here's a closer look at what taxpayers, markets and the government are weighing ahead of February 1st. 4 stories which will tell you whether you should expect tax cuts, or whether you should expect the customs duty revision, whether the budget is going to create an ecosystem that will enable job creation, and is India's defense sector up for a major investment boost. Keep watching News 9. We leave you with these stories on Budget 2026, the expectations.
As India counts down to the Union Budget on 1st of Feb, the spotlight is once again on income tax and whether Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman will deliver relief to salaried and middle-class taxpayers for a second year running. Budget 2025 marked a major reset on taxation, with the sweeping overhaul of the new income tax regime, the rollout of the new Income Tax Act and sharp GST rate rationalization. The question now is, does Budget 2026 build on that momentum or opt for restraint? Under last year's budget, income up to 12 lakh rupees became fully tax-free under the new tax regime, rising up to 12,75,000 for salaried taxpayers after standard deduction. The basic exemption limit was also raised from 3 lakh rupees to 4 lakh rupees. TDS and TCS rules were rationalized to ease compliance. Those changes accelerated the shift towards the new income tax regime away from the old income tax regime. Out of 7.28 crore income tax return filers for assessment year 24-25, 72% opted for the new regime, compared with 28% under the old. Experts say that government has clearly nudged taxpayers towards the new regime by making it simpler, cleaner and less dependent on exemptions. According to market analysts, any fresh tax relief in Budget 2026 is likely to be targeted and not sweeping. Possible moves include widening lower tax brackets, raising the standard deduction to reflect inflation, further simplifying TDS and TCS provisions, and greater clarity on the future of old tax regime. But the big question is whether tax cut can still drive growth. With private consumption forming the largest share of GDP, economists say relief aimed at urban middle-income earners could boost discretionary spending from housing and autos to services. Yet, the math is delicate. Can tax cuts meaningfully lift consumption without denting government revenues? There's also a political layer. With West Bengal and Tamil Nadu heading to elections, the budget will be closely watched for signs of populism, especially tax sops aimed at the middle class. Another issue under debate is, will raising the nil tax slab further actually bring more taxpayers into the formal system or simply reduce collections from existing ones? Economists note that while a higher exemption threshold eases compliance pains, it does not automatically widen the tax base unless accompanied by stronger enforcement and formalization. And there is an external risk. India's exports face uncertainty amid tariff pressures and global trade tensions, raising concerns over future revenue flows. Can the government absorb a revenue shortfall from tax relief at a time when export earnings are under pressure? Remember, this will be Nirmala Sitharaman's 9th consecutive union budget, a rare milestone, delivered at a moment when expectations are high and fiscal room is limited. With budget around the corner, all eyes are now on the Finance Minister. Union Budget 2026 may not bring dramatic tax cuts, but even modest, well-calibrated tweaks could decide how much money stays in taxpayers' pockets. All eyes on 1st of Feb and the budget for a bulletproof Bharat.
As the Union Budget 2026 draws closer, all eyes are on whether Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman will unveil policies to boost employment at a time when India's demographic dividend is running up against structural challenges in the job market. India's unemployment rate stood at around 4.8% in December 2025, edging up slightly with urban joblessness rising even as rural participation remains steady. Labour force participation stood at just over 55% in the July to September quarter of 2025. Female participation rose marginally to 33.7%, while the worker population ratio inched up to 52.2% according to official labor data. Despite falling headline unemployment, economists warn that underemployment and informal jobs remain widespread, with nearly 90% of India's workforce still in gig work, raising concerns over job quality and income security. One area showing sustained momentum is Global Capability Centers, or GCCs. India hosts 1,800 plus GCCs clustered in cities like Bengaluru, Hyderabad, Pune, Chennai, Mumbai, NCR, Coimbatore, Jaipur, Kochi and Indore. Together, these centers employ between 1.9 and 2 million professionals. Industry estimates put their annual economic value at around $65 billion, with hiring growing 4 times faster than traditional IT services. By the end of this decade, the GCC workforce could expand to as many as 3.5 million people. Analysts say GCCs are no longer back-office centers. They now anchor innovation, R&D, product engineering and AI governance, making them a structural pillar of India's white-collar employment story. Artificial intelligence is reshaping the employment landscape, but with little nuance. A NASSCOM Indeed study finds AI already handling 20 to 40% of tech work in India, while human expertise remains essential. India's tech and AI ecosystem now supports millions of jobs, with around 1.8 lakh startups deploying AI, cloud and data technologies. Demand is rising for skills in analytics, AI governance, cybersecurity and advanced engineering, putting pressure on skilling and reskilling systems to keep pace. Manufacturing, long seen as the engine of mass employment, continues to lag, with job creation trailing output growth despite strong GDP numbers. Government data shows production-linked incentive schemes have attracted 2 lakh crore rupees in investment so far, creating about 12.6 lakh direct and indirect jobs and triggering nearly 19 lakh crore rupees in incremental output. Sector-wise, solar manufacturing has created around 43,000 jobs. Mobile manufacturing has added about 1.3 lakh direct jobs, while the textiles PLI is expected to generate over 22,000 jobs from government-approved projects. Industry proposals ahead of Budget 2026 call for expanding PLI coverage and linking incentives to industry capabilities to make manufacturing jobs-led, not just output-led. With the economy holding up amidst global uncertainty, Budget 2026 may focus on wage subsidies, skill programs and employment-linked incentives to drive job creation. The India Skills Report 2026 shows project-based hiring rising by around 40%, overall employability improving to 56.3%, and for the first time, women surpassing men in job readiness. For a country with the world's largest working age population, employment is not just a policy goal, it is an existential challenge. Budget 2026 may not solve everything, but if fiscal tools align with the realities of AI disruption, GCC growth and manufacturing reform, India's demographic dividend could turn into a success story. All eyes on February 1st. Can Budget 2026 deliver jobs for Bharat?
As India heads into Union Budget 2026 on 1st February, defence spending is no longer just about allocations. It is about how New Delhi funds the next phase of warfare, from drones and artificial intelligence to cybersecurity and autonomous systems, while operating under tightening fiscal constraints. In Budget 2025, the Modi government allocated 6.81 lakh crore rupees to the Ministry of Defence for financial year 2025-26, which is a 9.53% increase over the previous year, and the single largest allocation among all ministries, accounting for 13.45% of the union budget. Of the total allocation, 1.8 lakh crore, which is over 26%, was earmarked for capital outlay, focused on modernization and new acquisitions. Revenue expenditure for pay, allowances and operational readiness stood at 3.11 lakh crore, while defence pensions accounted for 1.61 lakh crore. A major shift in Budget 2025 was the emphasis on domestic procurement. Of the modernization budget, 75%, which is over 1.11 lakh crore rupees, was reserved for purchases from Indian industry, with 27,886 crore specifically earmarked for private domestic manufacturers. This funding supports acquisitions ranging from long-endurance remotely piloted aircraft and deck-based fighters to next-generation submarines, while pushing the armed forces into new domains such as cyber, space, artificial intelligence, robotics and machine learning. Research and development emerged as a major priority. The DRDO budget rose 12.4% to 26,817 crore rupees, with nearly 14,924 crore for capital expenditure, aimed at deep technology, fundamental research and collaboration with private industry. Operation Sindoor was a turning point. AI-enabled drones, ISR systems, predictive logistics and decision support platforms compressed response times and improved precision, transforming how operations were historically executed. The government has made it clear that lowering the debt to GDP ratio remains a core priority in this year's budget. With public debt still well above the long-term target and the fiscal deficit expected to hover around 4.3 to 4.6% of GDP, defence expansion faces clear limits. The Ministry of Defence is reportedly seeking a 20% hike in defence spending. Whether that happens is uncertain, and analysts warn that spending more only works if the system can absorb it efficiently. Union Budget 2026 will quietly decide India's next warfare strategy. Not just how much the country spends on defence, but whether fiscal policy keeps pace with a battlefield increasingly defined by speed, data and algorithm. On February 1, the budget will reveal whether India is ready to fund that future or stretch the next generation ambitions within old constraints.
As the Union Budget 2026 approaches, attention is turning to customs duties, a key policy lever at a time when India is navigating global trade tensions, renewed tariff risks, and its own manufacturing ambitions. With pressure mounting both at home and abroad, the big question is whether the budget will protect domestic industry or ease duties to stay globally competitive. Customs duties sit at the intersection of trade policy, revenue needs, and industrial strategy. A recent report from Global Trade Research Initiative suggests customs duties now account for just 6% of gross tax revenue and average only 3.9% of the value of imports due to rationalization and free trade agreements. But they remain a critical fiscal tool with limited budget headroom. Over the last few years, India has increasingly used customs duties to discourage imports, promote local value addition, and support Make in India and production-linked incentive or PLI sectors. But the global backdrop has changed. Recent months have seen renewed tariff tensions, including US tariff actions, along with broader protectionist signals and escalating trade disputes across major economies, raising fresh concerns about export growth, supply chain disruptions, and input cost pressures. For India, this has sharpened the debate. Can higher customs duties shield domestic industry without hurting exports and competitiveness at a fragile moment for global trade? In recent budgets, the government has followed a calibrated customs strategy, selectively raising duties on finished goods while cutting or rationalizing duties on raw materials and intermediates. The 2025-26 budget, for example, exempted critical minerals like cobalt for electric vehicles. The objective has been clear: raise the cost of imports that directly compete with Indian manufacturers while ensuring domestic producers are not handicapped by expensive inputs. This approach has been most visible in sectors like electronics, auto components, renewable energy, chemicals and capital goods, many of them linked to PLI scheme incentives. Industry bodies and trade chambers are calling for deep customs duty reforms ahead of Budget 2026. Trade organizations like FICCI want simplification of customs procedures and fewer disputes, warning that litigation and compliance bottlenecks are weighing on business confidence. Global consultancy Deloitte has gone further, calling for a comprehensive customs duty overhaul, arguing that India's tariff structure needs simplification to align with global trade norms. A new report from the Global Trade Research Initiative proposes a major revamp of India's import tariff and customs administration, arguing existing structures raise trade costs and hamper competitiveness. Exporters, meanwhile, are pushing for customs duty rationalization to protect competitiveness, especially as global demand softens and tariff barriers rise in key markets. That leaves the finance minister facing a familiar but sharper dilemma. Should it maximize revenue or ease trade friction? And should tariffs align more closely with India's free trade agreements or lean towards protectionism? With India positioning itself as a manufacturing hub, customs duties will play a decisive role, either attracting global supply chains or pushing them to competing economies. Analysts say Budget 2026 is unlikely to see across-the-board duty cuts or hikes. Instead, expectations center on calibrated sector-specific tweaks, aligning customs policy with manufacturing priorities, export strategy, global trade realities, and revenue constraints. In a volatile global trade environment, customs duties are no longer just a tax instrument. They are a signal of policy intent. Budget 2026 may not bring dramatic changes, but every tweak will be closely watched by industry, exporters, and global investors alike. All eyes on February 1st. Can Budget 2026 strike the right customs balance for India?
Jobs, housing, electric vehicles, defense. News9 decodes the numbers behind the noise. You define India's growth story. We decode what's in it for you. Budget 2026. No noise, no confusion. A budget for a bulletproof Bharat.
Bangladesh is on edge. Protesters also targeted symbols of Bangladesh's political history.
Mr. Yunus is being the new Jinnah of Bangladesh.
What defines this mob? Who are these people? Where do they come from? Pratham Alo, the newspaper, has also called it a terror attack.
Yunus is the Osama bin Laden of today's world.
The state has no strength, or those who are on the street are the state themselves. There's nothing called spontaneous, Bob. There's a theory called you keep the pot boiling.
When Trump captures Maduro, News9 breaks it first.
It's happening far away, but it has tremendous consequence for the world. What happens next?
Biggest international headline of the hour.
The US has conducted military strikes.
This is the Venezuelan president.
Maduro faces multiple charges, including narco-terrorism.
This is Maduro being taken to the New York court.
Donald Trump indicated that Greenland might be next.
Where will Donald Trump stop?
A dramatic U.S. operation, power shifts in Venezuela. High-stakes geopolitics unfolding. What does this mean for Venezuela? What does it mean for the world? And what comes next? On point with the facts, unmissable insights. In your interest always. Fastest alerts, hard facts, 360-degree analysis. From breaking news to deep dives, when the world changes, News9 leads. News9, always on top.
This is India's #1 news network, and you're watching News9, English news as it should be.
Hello and a very warm welcome. I'm Nancy Bora and you're watching News9 headlines first. US officially exits World Health Organization, accusing agency of straying from its core mission. Move comes exactly 1 year after President Trump signed an executive order to begin the process of withdrawal. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney hits back at Trump, saying that Canada and US have built remarkable partnership in security, trade and economy, but Canada does not live because of US. In retaliation, Trump withdraws Canada's invitation to Board of Peace. Trump meets Ukrainian President Zelensky on the sidelines of the World Economic Forum in Davos. His message to Russian President Putin is the war has to end. Indian Embassy in Abu Dhabi receives a list of more than 900 Indian nationals set to be released from the correctional facilities in UAE following a humanitarian directive issued by the UAE in November last year. Prime Minister Narendra Modi speaks to Brazilian President Lula da Silva. Leaders review India-Brazil strategic partnership. PM says our close cooperation is vital for advancing the shared interest of the Global South. Delhi police registered an FIR against terrorist Pannun of US-based Khalistani group Sikhs for Justice over his threat to create disturbances ahead of Republic Day. Mumbai Crime Branch's anti-extortion cell arrests gangster Ravi Pujari in connection with extortion threats to Bollywood choreographer Remo D'Souza and his wife. East Coast Railway introduces humanoid robot ASC Arjun at Visakhapatnam station. The first of its kind robot marks a step towards using advanced technology to enhance passenger safety, security and service delivery. White blanket of fresh snow covers streets in Jammu and Kashmir. 22 flights have been cancelled at Srinagar airport due to heavy snow. And now our top focus today, speaking from Davos, Karnataka Deputy Chief Minister D.K. Shivkumar addressed the issue of power sharing within the Congress in an interview to a national news channel.
asserting that confidence in the party leadership and his colleagues. DK Shivkumar said that leadership decisions in the party are not based merely on the number of MLAs, stressing that the Congress functions as a united team. DK said that while he enjoys the support of 140 MLAs, so does the Chief Minister Siddaramaiah, who has the backing of 140 MLAs as well. And the final decisions on the leadership resets with the party high command. Maintaining an optimistic tone, DK said that he has always believed in hope and positivity. He said that hard work never goes in vain and that he remains optimistic. He expressed his confidence that the party leadership would not abandon him. DK Shivkumar also underlined that leadership-related matters are not meant for public or media debate and should be discussed politically behind closed doors. He rejected claims that he lacks the support of MLAs. He further stated that decisions on leadership would be taken keeping in mind the future of Karnataka and the need to strengthen both state and central leadership. For more on this, I'm joined by my colleague Gautam Shankar. Gautam, a big development from Karnataka where the Deputy Chief Minister in foreign soil has again reiterated the claim that the leadership change decision lies with the party high command and has refuted the claim that he does not have the backing of the MLAs.
Absolutely. So it does appear that this issue over the power tussle in Karnataka is simmering, even though the Deputy Chief Minister of Karnataka is right now in Davos for the World Economic Forum. We can see that what's on his mind is clearly the leadership tussle here. Now, what he said is that he's basically communicated that it's not just Siddaramaiah, the Chief Minister, who has the support of 140 MLAs of the Congress, that he too does enjoy a substantial support and all of the MLAs support him as well. And basically, he's reiterated that hard work never goes in vain. And that has been a statement that he has been repeating back in Karnataka, in Delhi as well. And that we've seen multiple tweets in the past as well saying that even if efforts go in vain, prayers will not. And that is the sentiment that he's trying to reflect, that basically he hopes that the High Command takes into cognizance the kind of hard work that he's done for the party and comes to a right decision without explicitly saying it out that he wants to become the Chief Minister. But there are enough not so subtle hints in what he's spoken at Davos, and that basically indicates that this issue, even though the High Command has tried to nip it in the bud, Rahul Gandhi did come to Mysore just a week ago, and he spoke to DK Shivkumar separately and Chief Minister Siddaramaiah as well. And the details of this meeting or the one-on-one discussions were not really made public. But despite the efforts by the High Command, it does appear that this issue is not far from over. And DK Shivkumar is expecting that the High Command will take a call and may possibly elevate him to the Chief Minister's post here, Nancy.
Well, Gautam, it is important to note that this tussle between the CM and the Deputy CM have been going on for months. From the November revolution to both the leaders going their separate ways after meeting Rahul Gandhi, the tussle and the rift has always been out in the open. Now, we see DK has always gone into the media and said that the decision lies with the party high command. But he is also saying that he is optimistic and that he's also pointed out that his hard work will not go in vain. Is that a message for the central leadership to now finally recognize Deputy Chief Minister's contribution and the reports that he will continue as the CM after 2.5 years, the power sharing deal that they had finalized behind closed doors?
Absolutely. We have to look at it more than it being a message. It seems to be a very veiled threat that DK Shivkumar is making to the Congress High Command now, because by consistently reminding them that you have to look at the hard work that I have put in, and instead of you've been applauding me, that is good enough, but you have to reward me with power and you have to trust me with power, is the kind of message that DK Shivkumar is trying to put out to the High Command, saying that he's got several pats on the back from Sonia Gandhi, from Rahul Gandhi, from Mallikarjun Kharge. All that is well and good. But we know that in Karnataka politics, power is kind of elusive. Stability in power is not the best known quality. So you never know when a government might topple or whether once you go out of power, when you might get it back. So the DK Shivakumar, there was talk that after the completion of 2.5-year term of Chief Minister Siddaramaiah, DK will take over, but that hasn't happened. Now, Chief Minister Siddaramaiah is basically one that holds the record for the highest, for the longest term in Karnataka as well. And what we understand is that the next milestone in this battle is likely to be the Karnataka budget session. After Chief Minister Siddaramaiah presents the budget, DK Shivakumar camp is hopeful that Siddaramaiah will basically relent and give up his Chief Minister's post to Siddaramaiah, to DK Shivakumar. But all of this is speculation as of now. But the ball firmly remains in the High Command's court. And what they've done is basically not really taken a stand. They haven't put out a clear message that Siddaramaiah will continue as Chief Minister for 5 years, or if DK Shivakumar will come back to, will get power in the near future as well. So this kind of hesitation from the High Command is leading to wagging of tongues, and this is basically not good for the posturing, because now on an international stage, the Deputy Chief Minister of Karnataka is going out there and speaking in public, and that cannot bode well for the Congress here, Nancy.
Well, thank you so much, Gautam, for joining me on the broadcast. Whether DKS gets what he's asking for, or whether the party leadership continues with Siddaramaiah, only time will tell. Now shifting our focus to PM Modi's high-stake visits to two poll-bound states, Kerala and Tamil Nadu, where he's all set to set the tone for the upcoming assembly polls. Prime Minister Narendra Modi is all set for his high-stakes visit to Kerala and Tamil Nadu, a tour that comes at a politically sensitive moment as both states witness sharpening confrontations between the governor and the chief ministers. The Prime Minister's visit reaffirms BJP's sustained attempt to deepen its political footprint in the south, a region where the party has been working to expand its influence through development-led outreach, cultural connect and grassroots mobilization. The visit also has clear political overtones as Prime Minister Modi addresses party rallies in Thiruvananthapuram and later in Chengalpattu, effectively sounding the poll bugle for the election-bound Kerala and Tamil Nadu. These rallies position the Prime Ministers as both a developmental-driven leader and the BJP's principal star campaigner. With assembly elections on the horizon, the outreach is aimed at energizing party cadre, consolidating support bases and framing the political discourse around the governance, development and what the BJP describes as an obstructionist state leaderships. Running in parallel with the political messaging is a packed official itinerary focused on development and welfare delivery in Kerala, where the Prime Minister will lay foundation stones, inaugurate projects and flag off new services in Thiruvananthapuram. From boosting rail connectivity and urban livelihoods to strengthening science, innovation, healthcare and citizen-centric services, the programs re-emphasize centers' inclusive growth and infrastructure-led transformation models. The developmental announcements provide the substantive backdrop to the political engagements, allowing the Prime Minister to project governance outcomes while engaging voters across the southern states during his crucial visit. Meanwhile, on the same day, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is set to land in Tamil Nadu to address a rally. Chief Minister M.K. Stalin is preparing to escalate the political battle over the VB-G Ramji bill. The Tamil Nadu government will move a resolution in the State Assembly opposing the proposed legislation. The ruling DMK has demanded that the centre restore Mahatma Gandhi's name to the Rural Employment Scheme, alleging that its removal undermines the spirit and legacy of the programme. The party has also raised strong objections to the revised 60-40 ratio of funding formula between the centre and the states, arguing that places an additional financial burden on the state exchequer. According to the DMK, the proposed changes could severely weaken the scheme, warning that the centre's move amounts to a quote-unquote slow death of the rural employment program. And now shifting our focus to the state of Karnataka, where the Governor Thawarchand Gehlot skipped the cabinet-approved speech, leading to acrimony in Karnataka's legislature. The state cabinet met and discussions were held on how to deal with the governor. The cabinet is likely to write letter to the president asking for the recall of the governor. Plans are afoot to launch a governor go-back campaign. A resolution is likely to be passed asking for the recall of the governor. Meanwhile, the BJP has labelled the acrimonious session as a black day. The BJP said that the heckling of the governor was a direct attack on the constitution and that the criminal charges should be brought against the legislature who heckled the governor. The leader of the opposition in the Karnataka Legislative Council, Chalavadi T. Narayanaswamy, has formally petitioned the chairman to take immediate disciplinary action. The opposition leader asserted that the situation was so dire that a major catastrophe was only prevented by the timely intervention of the governor's security personnel. Meanwhile, Tamil Nadu CM M.K. Stalin took to his social media platform X, saying that governors were behaving like party agents and are trying to undermine state governments. He said that the issue can be resolved through a constitutional amendment that will remove the governor's address to the legislature at the start of the session. DMK said that it will consult like-minded opposition parties across India and pursue a constitutional amendment in the very next parliamentary session to abolish this obsolete and irrelevant practice. Well, a major showdown. The governor and the state government. High drama in the assembly yesterday when the governor reached the assembly, shook hands with Siddaramaiah, went inside, but then was later escorted out by the security personnel after what the BJP is claiming that the MLAs and the MLCs allegedly heckled him after he refused to read the speech given to him by the elected state government. The government maintains that it is his constitutional duty to read the address. And now shifting our focus to a major geopolitical shift that is unfolding in the South Asia, as the United States quietly opens channel with Bangladesh's once banned Islamist party Jamaat Islami, a move that could redraw regional equations and trigger diplomatic ripples. Audio recordings accessed by the Washington Post reveal a US diplomat in Dhaka indicating that Washington wants to engage Jamaat ahead of Bangladesh's February 12 elections, predicting the party's strongest ever performance and even saying the US wants them to be friends. This outreach comes amid Bangladesh's volatile political transition following the ouster of former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, with Islamist forces re-entering the political mainstream after years of political exclusion. Jamaat Islami's resurgence is raising serious claims across the region because this is a party that has been banned multiple times in Bangladesh's history for its hardline Islamist ideology and controversial past. Jamaat has traditionally advocated governance based on Sharia law, supported curbs on women's participation in the workforce, and has long been accused of links to extremist networks. While the party now claims it has moderated its position and is focused on anti-corruption and governance, critics argue that this is a strategic rebranding rather than a genuine ideological shift. The concern is that once normalized and empowered, Jamaat's core worldview could resurface, threatening Bangladesh's secular fabric and social freedoms. Meanwhile, an anti-India bonhomie is brewing in Bangladesh. Worrying numbers are emerging ahead of Bangladesh's upcoming 13th national parliamentary elections. A report by Transparency International, Bangladesh, published in the Dhaka Tribune reveal a sharp rise in candidates from Islamist parties, now making up to over 36% of contestants, that highest share seen in the last 5 elections. At the same time, women remain severely underrepresented, with no political party meeting even the 5% target for women candidates. The findings were presented by TIB Executive Director Iftikhar Ruzaman at a press conference in Dhaka. The report, presented by TIB's Communications Director Tawhidul Islam, analyzed the data from 1981 candidates contesting the polls under 51 political parties, along with independents. The report also flags deep financial concerns. More than 25.5% of candidates are in debt, with total liabilities touching a staggering 18,866 crore Dhaka rupees. The highest debt amount recorded despite fewer indebted candidates compared to the past elections. The report also highlights the growing influence of wealth and criminality in politics. Nearly 900 candidates are millionaires, while over 22% face ongoing criminal charges. Well, statistics painting a very grim picture in Bangladesh, where women are underrepresented. With so many candidates filing and breaking the record for the upcoming elections, not a single party is meeting the criteria of even 5%. 36% candidates are hardliners, and women candidates remain underrepresented. Parties are failing to meet the 5% criteria for women candidate. A data shocker from Bangladesh. More than 900 candidates are millionaires, while over 22% face ongoing criminal cases. Now shifting our focus back at home, in the midst of the ongoing tensions between the Enforcement Directorate and the West Bengal government, ED Director Rahul Navin is on a 3-day visit to the state. Navin arrived in Kolkata and is set to hold a series of high-level meetings, including a lunch with the senior officers. The visit comes against the backdrop of recent confrontations between the central agency and the TMC-led state government following ED searches at the Kolkata office of political consultancy firm IPAC and the residence of its founder Pratik Jain. Earlier, the ED carried out raids at IPAC's office and Pratik Jain's home, where Mamta stormed the premise, and ED has accused Mamta Banerjee of obstructing with the probe. Big development from the state of Kolkata. ED chief has arrived in Kolkata amid tension. The visit comes in the backdrop of the recent drama between CM Mamta Banerjee and the ED officials. The ED says that Mamta Banerjee stormed the raid site and took key evidence with her. Mamta Banerjee maintains that she was just trying to protect political data of the TMC party, and she has accused the ED of taking away her party's documents ahead of the high-stake polls in West Bengal. Live visuals on your screen. Navin is set to hold high-level meetings with ED officers. The matter soon reached Supreme Court, where the court had directed that no action will be taken against the ED officers until the probe is over. 3 FIRs were filed against ED by the TMC, by the West Bengal police. They had accused ED of trespassing and conducting raids without informing the local police. Mamta Banerjee did not hold back and raided the premise, the IPAC office, and reached Pratik Jain's home as well. And now, as the nation marks the 129th birth anniversary of Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose today, his daughter Anita Bose has renewed her appeal for the repatriation of the ashes preserved at the Tokyo's Renkoji temple. Anita Bose has urged Indians to support what she described his posthumous return from exile and to back the transfer of his ashes to India for a dignified and appropriate final rite. She said it would have caused deep anguish to her father, who spent much of his life in exile while striving for India's independence, that his remains continue to rest on foreign soil nearly 8 decades after India attained freedom. It is widely believed that Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose died in a plane crash in Taipei in August 1945. A section of the Bose family did challenge the plane crash theory, but later it was accepted. Anita Bose said that after Japan's surrender in August 1945, her father left Singapore for Tokyo but met with a fatal plane crash in Taipei on August 18. She further claimed that although Netaji initially survived the crash with serious burn injuries, he passed away later. He was cremated in Taipei and his ashes were subsequently transported to Japan. Subhash Chandra's daughter Anita Bose appeals that her father's remains be brought back to India for the final rites. She has urged Indians to support her demand so that her father and a celebrated freedom fighter of the country gets a dignified and an appropriate final rite. She said that it has caused deep anguish that her father, who spent much of his life in exile while striving for India's independence, that his remains continues to rest on foreign soil for over 80 years. Anita Bose says that this is the time to bring back the last remains of his father back to India. An FIR has been registered against terrorist Gurpatwant Singh Pannun of 6 for justice. The FIR was filed over his threat to create disturbances in the Delhi ahead of the Republic Day celebrations. The FIR has been registered by the Special Cell of the Delhi Police. The case has been under registration under the sections of 196, 197, 152 and 61 of the BNS. These sections include charges of conspiring against India, threatening the sovereignty, unity and integrity of India, and criminal conspiracy. Pannun had released a video on social media claiming that through his sleeper cells he had put up pro-Khalistan posters in areas such as Rohini and Dabri in Delhi. However, no such posters have been found so far in the searches conducted by the Delhi's Special Cell. A major threat avoided by the Delhi Police Special Cell. Plot to foil Republic Day celebration has been thwarted by the Delhi Police. Pannun shared a video on his social media claiming that he had put up pro-Khalistani posters in an attempt to disturb the Republic Day celebrations. Delhi Police has filed FIR against Pannun for threatening the sovereignty, unity and integrity of India. Various sections of the BNS have also been filed against Pannun. Brazilian President Lula da Silva held a telephonic conversation with Prime Minister Narendra Modi to discuss their country's bilateral ties. Sharing details on social media, President Lula said that he discussed his upcoming state visit to India, scheduled from February 19 to 21, during which they plan to advance the bilateral agenda between the two nations. The conversation also touched on global issues, with both leaders reaffirming their commitment to peace in Gaza, multilateralism and democracy worldwide. Brazilian president's visit will coincide with the inauguration of APEC's Brazil office in New Delhi. According to a press release by the Ministry of External Affairs, both leaders reaffirmed their commitment to further strengthen India-Brazil ties. And now in a major development, the United States has officially left the World Health Organization. The move was announced by the Department of Health and Human Services and the Department of State. This comes a year after Donald Trump signed an executive order to begin the process of withdrawal. Trump said its decision reflected the failures in the UN's health agency management of the COVID-19 pandemic. He also argued that other countries like China have been contributing less monetarily to the WHO than the United States, and that there has never been an American Director General, despite the amount of money that the US has contributed. President Trump gave notice over quitting the WHO on the first day of his presidency in 2025 via an executive order. Public health experts have criticized the withdrawal from the WHO, saying that it will put the US at a disadvantage when it comes to responding to health crises, both at home and abroad. As US President Donald Trump unveiled his ambitious Board of Peace at the World Economic Forum in Davos, one name was conspicuously missing from the stage: India. While Pakistan's Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif attended the signing ceremony, New Delhi chose silence, neither accepting nor rejecting Washington's invitation. So why is India staying away? And is Trump's Gaza peace of board a peace plan or a diplomatic minefield? India has been invited, but India has not signed on. US President Donald Trump has formally invited New Delhi to join his newly announced US-led Gaza Peace Board aimed at post-war reconstruction and stabilization of the conflict-hit region. The invitation places India in a very delicate strategic spot at a time when the Gaza war has entered its third year and global diplomatic sensitivities are at their peak. At the heart of the concern is Donald Trump's own word. Trump has repeatedly described Gaza not as a humanitarian crisis but as a real estate opportunity, once calling it a failed Riviera of the West Asia, even suggesting the US should take over and own the territory. Those remarks later translated into action. In September 2025, the US unveiled a 20-point redevelopmental plan, proposing reconstruction under the US-chaired Board of Peace, operating outside the frameworks of the United Nations. This bypasses multilateral norms that India has consistently upheld. Even more worrying, the absence of Palestinian political ownership. Without Palestinian representation, any outcome risks appearing externally imposed and lacking legitimacy. Then there's the power balance. While Israel is not a formal member of the board, it holds the de facto veto power over the security and implementation, raising serious questions over the accountability. The structure is also US-dominated, offering little clarity on Gaza's future, governance, borders, and sovereignty. The board comes with a $1 billion reconstruction package, focused on housing, power, water sanitation, and jobs, but funding is linked to security conditions. Critics warn that this could delay urgent humanitarian relief while shifting costs to partner countries without addressing the political roots of the conflict. Trump's earlier real estate rhetoric, combined with the presence of powerful financiers on the board, has sparked fears that commercial interest may trump Palestinian rights, consent, and the right of return. India's participation could undermine its long-standing credibility of multilateralism and Palestinian self-determination, especially when humanitarian aid can be extended without formal membership. India should prioritize trade talks, approach the board cautiously, and ensure participation does not weaken multilateral institutions such as the United Nations. For now, India is watching and waiting. Addressing the gathering, Trump again claimed that his intervention had helped avert a military conflict between India and Pakistan, repeating an assertion New Delhi has denied categorically. But as Trump pushes ahead with his Board of Peace, the question remains: is this a genuine pathway to peace or a high-risk geopolitical gamble that India cannot afford? And now shifting our focus to our campaign about healing the heels, that we will get to you after a quick commercial breather. Keep watching News 9.